Three, two. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. It's Tulsiology. I am your host, Dave. We have a very special guest today, my good friend Pasta, who is on the Convo Couch, literally on the Convo Couch. I have made fun of this couch on a few occasions, but it's way more comfortable than me sitting on this damn chair, which irritates my backside after a while. I don't want to get graphic, but how's it going, Pasta?
It's great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. It's nice to finally get to talk to you, meet you, and have some good spear-hearted discussions.
Amen to that, brother. When did the Convo Couch start? When did you start that channel?
Funny, yesterday was our 3-year birthday. We started 3 years ago yesterday. We started on Facebook in the beginning. We really weren't concentrating too much on YouTube. We came from that kind of activist field of sorts. Fiorella was an activist. I was a little bit of an activist myself. You know, we jumped on that Bernie train on 2016, and when Bernie, the Bernie train back then, and then when Bernie was like, "Oh, you got to run for office, you got to go out there, run for dog catcher, run for this," we're like, well, maybe we should run for the fourth branch of government, which is the media, and provide a voice there that's not being provided for progressive or leftist libertarian candidates or whatnot. And we can show some what's going on at these protests and just do the job that the mainstream media is not doing, because basically they're out there for propaganda. So we thought we'd become some truth tellers. And 3 years ago yesterday, in fact, it was a Facebook show, and I made a puttanesca omelet, because if you don't know, I like to cook and whatnot. And it was our first show, and here we are today.
Whew, yeah, Putin usually sends me vodka. It's, you know, I had a few shows where I drank a little bit of vodka and did the show, and people were saying, "You look like you're kind of drunk up there," and I'm like, yeah, you're right, because you know, I'm looking at what's happening in the world, and everything gets blamed on Vladimir Putin, which is ridiculous. Let's just be honest. Whether you're on the left or the right these days, you're like, Putin again? Really? My car won't start because of Vladimir Putin? Okay, you know, but it's good. You guys do a great job. Yeah, Fiorina too. She's Fiorella, sorry. I think I made up a new character, Fiorina.
Everybody does. Everybody gets our names wrong, whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
Bad. So. Yeah, and it's Craig Pasta Jardula. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yeah, nice Irish name. Works great every time. So you've been doing this for a while. Explain to the audience, like, where are you politically? I mean, you and I have some similarities, but explain, like, we had a conversation, private call yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. I can't, time just goes by, so I can't, you know, I'm in lockdown, so I forget. Like, where are you politically? Where, you know, just out of curiosity, just so our audience can understand.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I refer to myself as a leftist libertarian because I do hold in high regards and high regards protection of our civil liberties. You know, a reason I'm here with you today, clean and fair, transparent elections, and ending regime change wars. I don't believe in the fiscal policies of the right, as far as the right libertarians, as far as the market's just going to work itself out. I do want some form of socialized medicine. I would settle for nothing less than the public option. And I believe a little bit more in science, and I'm against, like I told you, I would ban fracking in a heartbeat. Like right now, if I had that position, I would be like, nope, there will be no more fracking underneath Pasta Jardula administration. And I would sell the point, not because of what it does to the environment, but what it does to our water. Because I think there's areas we can kind of get along with and whatnot and agree with when it comes to the right and the left and whatnot. But I do refer to myself as a leftist libertarian of sorts, an independent-minded thinking person. So, yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you, let me drill down a little bit. So without fracking, obviously, we'd have maybe a little bit less fossil fuel energy. Would you be into nuclear power?
Nope. Not at all. Not at all.
What could replace fracking?
We have enough power, I think, on this planet we have enough means to get power we need. Currents, wind, solar, the whole 9 yards. Hemp, right? I mean, right now we talk about marijuana. It's not being utilized. It's not being utilized to stop cutting down our trees for toilet paper. We should have hemp toilet paper across the board to wipe our ass. We should have hemp for fuel. But there's so many different ways we can go about it. We don't need to start drilling and start putting stuff into the air. That's the one area where, when it comes to my libertarian friends on the right, that we don't see eye to eye. And that's why I would always take that approach of fracking, because I don't want oil in our water. But I would just ban fracking. I would kind of mimic what the Off Fossil Fuels Act was, a real bill. You know what I'm saying? Not this Green Deal resolution watered down that AOC just wanted to put out there to virtue signal. She was actually about the Off Fossil Fuels Act in the beginning. But I would ban fracking in a heartbeat, and I would find other ways. Currents, we haven't tapped into currents. We got to get into that too as well. So hemp and currents would be the way I really lift it up. I would double down on wind and solar and try to power this place without drilling for fossil fuels.
All right, fair enough. You got an answer. Again, we're not going to agree on everything. Let me ask you this: one more question on like the energy thing, or we'll call it climate change. It's more of a climate change question. You believe in climate change, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think can fix climate change though? What would be the solution to climate change?
Stopping. I mean, stop with the oil, stop burning that oil into the air. I mean, but the biggest thing, what we talked about, another big reason why we supported Tulsi Gabbard with the end of the regime change wars, that would stop dropping a lot of bombs. I know we have to figure, unless we go Elizabeth Warren and we get some green bombs that will, explode and hug you to death. But that's another big step we can take right there. Ending our regime change wars, stop manufacturing so many weapons that just blow up and pollute the environment, pollute the ozone layer. That would be a good way. Nice. So, I mean, I would just stop with the oil, you know what I'm saying? And stop as much as I can. We really need to tap into hemp, into marijuana, because that can really be a game changer.
All right. And I'm not disagreeing with that. Here's where I come from, the school of, I don't know if we can fix this. And I'm not saying, because I was a skeptic for a long time, not a denier. I don't want to be called a denier, but I was a skeptic. Now I'm at the point where I watched, like, I don't know if you saw Michael Moore's movie where he kind of examined the whole movement and how it's basically big business going in, cashing in, saying, hey, we're solar, we're green, we're going to do all these things. And, you make the panels, you do some things, and you think that's virtue signaling to me. Because even in his movie, at the end of it, I'm like, well, why are we doing all this if it has very little impact? So my fear is, as a human being looking out at the solar system and at the universe in general, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we can fix maybe we broke the climate, but I don't know if we can fix the climate. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm at the point where if we don't have universal, and this sounds very authoritarian, but if we don't have countries all over the globe participating in some kind of way to slow this down, by the way, not locking down the citizenry so they can't go to work. All right. Because this is where my mind connects dots that maybe it shouldn't connect. And I go, I wonder if they're trying to make us a little bit more green right now. And it's not that I don't want to go green, or drive less, or whatever it is that they're trying to get us to do. But people are dying, man. People are dying in the third world. The breadbasket of America feeds the third world. And if our supply chains are screwed up right now, which they are big time, that's why you can go to the grocery store and it's like you got a whole shelf that's still empty of one specific product because the supply chain is screwed up. And I don't know, America used to be able to feed other countries and do things. And I'm just concerned that I don't want any kind of authoritarian measures put in place that will do, like the cure is worse than the disease, that you were trying to cure.
Well, you know what it is, Dave, too? It's that whole, when you talk about the right, individual responsibility, right? That's the whole thing about, well, I don't understand where there's a lack of individual responsibility about burning things and putting them into the air and not being responsible for that. And the solution in my personal mind is to scale back, stop going all around the world trying to influence every single country's government and getting our hands involved and going for resource extraction because we are so dependent on oil. Scale back, come home. Let's change our ways here in the United States. You know, I talked to you about the whole vegan thing, about how you really make you take your carbon footprint and you really plug into it and you make a difference by going vegan. You know what I'm saying? Because all our land now is being plowed down for grazing these animals with the flagellants in the air, whatnot. So we unplug from that system. We have to find ways to get people more involved, that ways to cut down our meat consumption, to stop drilling for fossil fuels. Like I said, to me, hemp is the answer. But the whole way we do this is we stop sticking our nose over there in all these other countries and all these other places. Come home. I know I get accused of having this nationalist mentality of just retracting and coming back home, but let's come home. Let's set an example. Let's have an infrastructure bill that is partially green, and let's tap into other ways that don't pollute, you know, the air and the environment. Like we talked about it, wind, solar, currents, hemp. And let's do it. That's the only way we could do it. If we really, really lead by example, instead of telling everybody what to do, let's show them what we can do. And that's something I believe as Americans that we can do. We have the mindset and the capability to really pull this off. If we got the leaders out of our way and got them on our side, man, we can pull that off.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And here's where, whether I agree with your philosophy on hemp or on solar or on wind, I 100% agree that we need to get the hell out of other countries, and we need to bring troops home. We have what, 800 military bases or something
around the world. Yeah.
It's insanity. You know, we have troops anywhere we've ever had a war, basically, or where we could have a war, we have a military installation. So I am 100%. This is why Tulsi Gabbard, she would get, you know, right libertarians, left libertarians. She'd get progressives. She'd get a few conservatives, obviously, because there are a lot of conservatives that I speak with who say, yeah, you know, war, you know, Trump kind of maybe pulled them into that and said, you know what, we bring the money home, America first. Whether Trump has been good at America first, you know, we could talk about Saudi Arabia. He wasn't really America first when it came to Saudi Arabia. And then the whole term got bastardized because the media got a hold of it. And a lot of progressives too said, hey, America first, that's racist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? Really? Taking care of grandma is racist? Okay. So that's where I kind of lose it with some of my lefty friends is there's a lot of extrapolation and, you know, there are these dog whistle words and things you can say and things you can't say. Yeah. And I'm sitting here going, dude, I'm just a guy, you know, I'm not a boomer. I'm close to being a boomer. I'm not a boomer, but then I'm getting yelled at. You know, you don't understand. You know, go back to your rocking chair. Leave us alone.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, David, because we know this. Everybody's talking about, oh, it's the way we are treating refugees is terrible. We're locking them up the cages and whatnot. Where guys like me and you were like, hey, we got a suggestion. How about we stop creating the refugees? And that would be the best fucking solution to this problem. You know what I'm saying? And people that couldn't understand, that was one of Tulsi's main linchpins and why we supported her. We go right to the disease, not what's on the surface, not the symptom. Let's go to the problem. Stop creating refugees, and then we don't have to worry about taking care of them as so much because we're not creating as many.
Well, think of how bad it's got to be in other countries if people want to come to America in the year 2020. Think of how bad it's got to be somewhere else. So you're right. People coming up, they're willing to walk thousands of miles through Mexico, all over Southern America. So, and we're the ones going into these countries, and we're destabilizing the country. And we need regime change. This person's a dictator. This person. How about hands off? How about let's try to help these countries in little ways? No, we don't have to give them millions and billions of dollars. We can do other things that can facilitate their growth and maybe a little bit more democracy, but you know, trying to reshape the world in our image, you know, I think of Dr. Ron Paul here, that hasn't worked out so well. It's just
but I think that's a hidden thing too as well. It's not trying to shape and spread democracy. It's mostly about corporations and resource extraction. I haven't had a banana for over 2 years that come from Guatemala because I understand the story of us overturning that government when they had nationalized their main resources, banana. So instead of that whole country benefiting off the banana, helping their citizens with education, healthcare, whatnot, we go in there, the UFC, the United Fruit Company, we throw out the government, and then a corporation now, one guy is making the profit of all those bananas rather than allowing them to rule themselves, have their own government, and actually get the resources off those bananas. Same thing's happening today with Bolivia right now.
Yeah.
And lithium.
Yeah. So, and it's another place where our guys are all rubbing their hands together. I think we could do this thing. Venezuela, it's not working out, so let's go to Bolivia. And I remember during the campaign, people were saying Tulsi needs to hurry up and condemn our actions in Bolivia. And I was just laughing, going, give her time. Give her time.
Let's be honest. Yeah. Bernie Sanders goes, it is a coup. It is a coup. And everybody goes clapping, and that's it. Yeah. We asked her. We were the first people to ask her about Bolivia. Fiorella, the microphone, she says, I'm not ready to make a statement on Bolivia. Yeah, she waited 4 or 5 days. Yep. She came back. Her statement was better because her statement had a lot more meaning. It is a coup, and America should keep their hands off. That's the biggest difference. Nobody said that. She did the homework. She came back, and she found the links of us messing around in Bolivia. And what's it all about, Dave? Resource extraction. Yeah. I know Donald Trump has some knowledge of what's going on over there. He wasn't going to let his buddy Elon Musk not get a hold of that lithium. And he said, we'll coup who we want to coup. You know what I'm saying? But once again, Tulsi's statement was bigger than anybody else. It is a coup, and America not need to involve themselves.
Right. Well, and that's the thing about Trump's Trump's a businessman, so he looks at all of these things like, oh, we could take their oil. Oh, we could take their minerals. And we're all like, no, if you do that, this is all this country has. This isn't like your buddy who's a billionaire buddy who you're competing with, who you're trying to get like a real estate deal, better deal, which is fine. You guys, you tycoons, you want to work the real estate market, fine. But these countries need to have something. They need to have something that like you talked about the bananas. I don't know, dude. This is why politics right now for me is so toxic, and there's a lot of people who are beginning, because it's like a circuit breaker. Like you turn on the news and you're like, zzz, it's like it's for me it's Joe Biden overload right now, because they're working 24/7. If there were more hours in the day, you go on Twitter and the whole sidebar is lined with all these Joe Biden said this, and when we fact check Donald Trump and Joe Biden's right every single time. Joe Biden's right. Yeah. We've seen rigged elections. You've been on the ground during rigged elections. You've seen the rigging firsthand. What do you think about this presidential race right now? And is this, are we watching a rigged election for Joe Biden? Well,
they're trying hard. I think people should pay attention to the fact that the HEROES Act never got passed, not because it had trillions of dollars. It's because Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats were trying to amend the HAVA Act, which is the Help America Vote Act, by removing a amendment that said that the states, 32 states, had the right to verify their signature on their absentee ballots and mail-in ballots. Okay. The Democrats are trying to use this tactic of overstuffing the mail-in ballots. Okay. I believe that's how they cheated Bernie Sanders this time out. But once again, we don't have a proper audit process. And in fact, Los Angeles, where I live, has a 1% audit process. So you can't even, you don't even get an autopsy of the dead body. You know what I'm saying? You just have to accept these results. Yeah. However, McConnell and Trump, and here's the thing, Trump is looking in the right place. The very fortunate thing about Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, is that the areas that they have attacked him, he's been able to expose somewhat. Right. Not too long ago, Wolf Blitzer and William Barr were there. And the Democrats they're the same. And it's kind of sad to see Bernie Sanders taking the same kind of narrative and his marching orders. Like, there's no problem with our mail-in ballots. There's never been widespread fraud. I don't know why you're just creating this problem. The real problem is you're trying to hurt the post office. Well, no, number one, let's be honest. In 2009, the Democrats, along with the Republicans, signed a bill that said the post office had to have 75 years of liquidity for their pension plans in the bank, meaning they were putting money in the bank for people, for employees that weren't even born yet. You know what I'm saying? That really shocked the post office. Every single year they've had to downsize because of this one particular bill, and that was handed to them by the Democrats as well as the Republicans. So they're part of the problem. To try to go and put it on Donald Trump is fugazing this and stuff like that. So there's your first issue when it comes to these particular elections and stuff. The second issue is the fact that, when it comes to that, Bill Barr told him, hey, it's not Donald Trump who said there's problems when it comes to the mail-in. It's not the post office. Jimmy Carter, right? Yeah. Okay. Jimmy Carter said this with Baker and a bipartisan issue. And I can tell you this from a person who looks at these elections and systemically and the way they are run, there is proprietary software in our tabulation machines, which is the devil, because we can never look into it. It's black box voting, so we don't know. So whoever owns those contracts in that state, I often say it's like a cartel. You got this cartel here and that cartel here. Their objective is to win by cheating. Their joint objective together is to make sure our third party never gets above 5%. So they'll always accomplish that.
Yeah.
But as far as this election, they might be able to cheat. Donald Trump has saw it, and that the Republicans got their own little tactics, and that's purging minorities off these voter rolls all the time, whatnot. Yeah. But between you and me, Dave, I think Donald Trump has a little bit of a quagmire. I think Donald Trump wants to say he's got more people of color vote than any Republican before him. Yeah. So what vote are they going to suppress themselves, the Republicans, as well? You know what I'm saying? But it could be a situation where the Democrats overflood the ballot box with dead people votes, fake votes, people removed. The ballot harvesting that Tulsi tried to pay attention to is something serious. They can harvest all these ballots. They harvest them in the nursing homes. Like, in other words, you have the nursing homes. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a great example, District 23 in Florida. Yeah. She has all the nursing homes under her belt, right? So now you get these guys who collect the ballots from maybe somebody who passed away, but their ballot's still coming. They cast votes. So the harvesting is a serious issue as well. But if you ask me who's going to win this election right now, if it is a fair election or semi-fair, Donald Trump will win in a landslide, because Joe Biden can't get 12 people to go to a rally and that's it and stuff like that. If they find a way to stuff the ballot box in these other areas, if they out-cheat the Republicans, then they can win. But it's up in the air right now because our elections are crap and we need to fix them systemically, Dave.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Your analysis was spot on. And I don't know. I guess with the outcome of this election, me and my friend Charles, we do videos together. Charles Anderson, good guy. He does a show called the Lone Wolf Podcast, and he and I came up with this thing called the brown wave. And you'll hear about the red wave, the blue wave. Me and Charles, we're predicting a brown wave, Pasta, no matter which way this goes, because I think there's going to be a lot of civil unrest if Trump wins. If Biden wins, you basically have, the emperor has no clothes, and then you have your friend Kamala, who will be quickly taking over. That's why Pelosi did that thing with the 25th Amendment. She's not looking at Trump. She's looking at, hey, she knows that Biden's not going to be able to serve for all that long. So they're looking for ways to kind of just completely dismantle the entire election. I mean, this almost feels like a coup, like not necessarily against Trump, maybe against Trump, but against everybody. Like, we don't have any say. Like, we're on a conveyor belt and we're just being driven along like, hey, next stop, Joe Biden. What do you think? And it's going to be great. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm back in the primaries. I'm rooting for the best candidate I've seen in my lifetime, dude. I mean, she's authentic, she's sincere, she's feisty when she needs to be, but she's compassionate as hell. She understands what people are going through. She doesn't take what people say. I watch her. Well, you were there on the ground with her. I mean, is she as real as I think she is?
She's beyond real. And it reminds me of the first time that we had our little first spat. Remember when we talked about it the other day? Tulsi for staff. I loved it. It's funny because like people came to my defense and whatnot. And I was like, guys, stop it. David is right. He gave me a little spank on the ass. He's 100% right. I'm stopping this whole kind of like Tulsi's second place to somebody else. Yeah. Because the further along we got in this whole process, and I want to send a special shout out to Chris DeShillis. You might not know him. Hopefully he's having a speedy recovery and stuff like that. But when we last spoke, and he was a Tulsi fan and a big supporter, you know what he said the greatest thing was? And this is kind of going back to when we had our first spout and somebody called me. Yeah. You got to be able to go and talk to the other side. You got to stop with this cancel culture and demonizing people, whatnot. Right. Chris told me one of the most proudest thing about being a Tulsi person was we can go and talk to the Republicans. We can go and sit down with them. Yeah. We're not going to call them Nazis and demonize and whatnot. And if we have any movement for the future, my politics have changed because of Tulsi, really. You know what I'm saying? I don't demonize those people anymore. I just think they're wrong about certain things, and I'm always going to go and talk to them.
Right.
We don't know where she's at now, where she's going to be, but it needs to be somebody of that nature, somebody who's going to stop demonizing these people on the right.
Yeah.
And somebody who's going to be able to talk to both sides. Same thing with the people on the right who demonize everybody on the left. I mean, it's kind of funny when you hear Donald Trump going the radical left and Joe Biden. It's like,
it's not.
Joe Biden's a friggin' Republican.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like, give me a break.
He's trying to. He's trying to. It's guilt by association. You know what I mean?
It is. It is. And it's low informed voters, and he's rallying them up and stuff like that. But when it comes to Tulsi, I'm still enamored and amazed by what's going on. I'm pretty much done with the Democratic Party. I mean, I'll forgive Bernie down the road. I hope he just finishes out his last term in the Senate and goes kicks it by the beach with his wife and be done with it. Yeah. And I'm not going to follow you anymore or do anything. Thank you for waking everybody up, but you go do your own thing. I'm hoping that Tulsi kind of resurfaces in some area and we have somebody who's willing to talk to both parties, whatnot, because the whole hype that she's so hated is it's a ploy by the establishment Democrats that hate her and some of the neo-progressives that I talked about. And I made these classifications of people. And the reason why I made these classifications for people is that those neo-progressives who are good-hearted, they want Medicare for all, whatnot, you know what I'm saying? They're the activists out in the streets. They didn't let a lot of us in the door who were Tulsi people, and they didn't understand it wasn't about Tulsi. It was about the issues and the mentality. Yeah. So I'm hoping that Tulsi can resurface one day, maybe come out there, or someone like her who's willing to talk to both sides. And that is what we need for the future. Right now, what we're left with in front of our face is rather disgusting. It's rather scary, but don't believe the hype, Dave, because the mainstream media is trying to hype up Joe Biden as much as they can because they need him to win. Their paychecks depend upon it. You know what I'm saying? Their goose could be cooked because Donald Trump is that much of a wild rocket that maybe he fires something at them, but don't believe the hype right now. They're trying to hoodwink us. I mean, I've even seen the 100 reasons to vote for Joe Biden. I ain't buying it. There ain't no reason to vote. 100 reasons to vote for Joe Biden.
He's a corpse.
Yeah.
He's a walking corpse. Come on. All right. So, but during that whole process, during the primaries and everything else, at some point I got really frustrated, not with you necessarily, but with a lot of people that might have like traveled in some of your circles who were Bernie, Tulsi, Bernie, Tulsi. And it was just like, okay, if you had given Tulsi a little bit more ink, a little bit more face time, a little bit more talk time. And again, this isn't addressed to you because I know your whole thing, but there are a lot of these so-called, I used to do this all the time, progressive media outlets that talk about Bernie Sanders 24 hours a day, and they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and it's about Bernie. And I'm thinking to myself, Tulsi, from a logical standpoint with the military service, the fact that she's younger, the fact that, she doesn't have children. I know that people don't talk about that, but she's not, imagine if she had a kid, it would be like a struggle between the kid and the job and she's a humanitarian. I mean, you go down the list of things that she's done. She was picking up trash on the beach in Hawaii when she was like a teenager, and
for her birthday.
That's how she got into environmentalism. It wasn't like she was like, oh, I'm going to promote solar panels. No, she's out on the beach, doing things that I think any of us would be proud to do or tell our kids, hey, this is our president. This is our president. Not 78 years old, not having a heart attack, not ready to kind of retire, but ready for action. And you talked about this when we had that little phone conversation about that military get up and go spirit that she has is a problem, and we got to go in. We're going in. We're going to fix this problem.
Yeah. It's funny because on April 13th, a couple years ago, not this last one, but the one before, Tulsi was in LA and she wanted to pick up trash for her birthday. And we were out there. We went to a park. It was about 100 people. And we went around and picked up trash. And here's, she's just doing this. And it's like, oh, is this for a photo op and whatnot? It's like, no, this is what she does for her birthday every year. This is Water Woman right over here. You know what I'm saying? But it was kind of cool because my birthday was on April 14th. Hers was on April 12th. And everybody's taking a picture and it's like, say happy birthday. And somebody goes, it's Pasta's birthday too. And Tulsi goes, it's Pasta's birthday too. And then we take a picture and it was really cool and stuff. But yeah, I mean, listen, we can go down the list bit by bit. I mean, even her actions or the way she talks to people from the other side.
Yes,
I agree with, but let's be honest. The establishment Democrats didn't want her. They control the media. They framed her. And I did a show, David, where I made the categorizations of the left, right? So we have the neoliberals, the neo-progressives, the true progressives, and the leftist libertarians.
Yeah.
Those neo-progressives, the majority of his base, the Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, they took the pill that the establishment fed them, and they went with it, and they used everything from Modi to slander her to her comments from a conservative family about gay people when she was 18 and shit stuff. So unfortunately, they framed her in a certain way that we can never get momentum. They went after her left and right. If you watch the debates, how it was so unfair. Like the one time the moderator asked her about Hezbollah, trying to tie her to Hezbollah, knowing that the majority of people watching really don't even know what Hezbollah is all about.
Or care.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it was just a situation. And yes, you go down that list, and it really does reflect on the people we are today and stuff. You know, we say it right now. I'm an Italian boy from New York, right? And I'm saying, hey, man, you don't know about the spirit of aloha. But when you know aloha and you see what she was all about, man, she was there. And all the issues, you know, maybe not for Medicare for All, which once again, she had Dennis Kucinich in her corner.
Right.
I counted on her to have the best healthcare plan because Dennis Kucinich was better than Bernie Sanders. Dennis Kucinich was trying to get the public option when Bernie folded back in the days and he was writing the bill for Obama. Dennis Kucinich was folding his arms, stomping his feet, and saying, no, at the very least, we need to get the public option.
Right. He went on. He had to take I remember Obama took him on a plane or something. They went somewhere.
Air Force One.
They had to talk about it. You know, Air Force One. Yeah. But they had to talk about it. You know, they had to sit down because Dennis wasn't convinced. And I remember all that. And I'm thinking to myself, you're not going to get one Republican vote. And he didn't get one Republican vote. And you know what? I think the Republican Party, has changed a lot. And I think a lot, not that they're moving left necessarily, they're moving more populist. And if you had a discussion remember the Bernie town hall at Fox News, thought it was one of the greatest things Bernie ever did. He got up there and he basically said, you know, would you like more money in your pocket? And people raise their hand. Would you like to just go to the doctor, get whatever you need done? And people were raising their hand. These were predominantly Republican voters. And see, if you frame things correctly and you don't say, hi, I'm Bernie Sanders, a socialist, and I'm here to fix your healthcare. You know? I think, and that's maybe, I just have a strategy and a branding issue with some of the rhetoric. And I've said that, and I think Kim Iverson a while ago had some issues with it too. I mean, she talked about it, and I got a little bit from her on that, but I kind of felt the same way. I'm like, we need a populist movement that embraces the cultural left, the cultural right, and everybody in between, and doesn't make a big stink about social issues as the number one. We can disagree and we can argue, and that's what Americans do, and we try to come to a conclusion or compromise. But when you have people who can't get health care, and you've got a homeless problem, and you've got cities that are just falling apart, and gentrification across the country, you've got civil unrest because people they're running out of hope, they're running out of options, they don't know what to do. They feel as though everything's collapsing in on them, whether it's true or not. It feels like it's true for them. Many of us don't see that, and that's where I need to do a better job kind of empathizing with these people. But I don't know where that's coming from, because the Republicans don't really want to fix it. They want to take care of people who are pretty self-sufficient. And now the Democrats have kind of, and you can go back to read like Listen Liberal and find out back in the 90s, they were like, hey, we can do this too. We can do this too. We can just rebrand it. And now everybody's doing it. The whole Biden candidacy right now is Bill Clinton 1996.
Pretty much.
So Trump comes along like a bull in a china shop, like a populist, and says, hey, even if he does it or not, he says, hey, I want to take care of blue collar workers. Hey, I want to take care of working class people. Hey, I want to bring manufacturing jobs back. Hey, our trade deals suck. You know, okay, yes, let's do this. Let's fix it. You would have, and you combine that with like a Tulsi Gabbard personality. All right. And you talked about Water Woman, you got Wonder Woman at that point, you know, and the fact that she can empathize and sort of, you know, think on the fly. She's not confused. I watched her. She was never stumped, never confused. If she didn't know, well, I'm not saying she wasn't stumped, but she would get back to you. She would say, you know what? I haven't researched that. And she'd come back with an answer.
It's funny because the one time she didn't do that and she answered a little bit prematurely as a question I asked her about what was going on with the NED in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And she just came back from like, her service as a what do you call it? A National Guard. She was away and she just came back.
Yep.
Stuff was heating up in Hong Kong. And I was asking her about what was going on in Hong Kong. And what about the connections with the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, knowing that it's regime change candidate is going to know about the regime change NGOs.
Yeah.
She didn't know and stuff. And Samira Khan just takes that clip and uses it to go against her every single freaking step of the way. But I mean, I think she evolved as a candidate, whatnot, and that don't bite off too much that you can chew. When Fiorella asked about Bolivia, she kicked it back. Let me research it. I want to make sure of the lines. But yeah, I mean, she was amazing across the board. And two, it's kind of funny because I want to talk about that whole Bernie Sanders situation. When you're talking when he went for the town hall, there was also a time when he said, Donald Trump, and then he stops himself and he goes, hey, you know what? Let's throw it away. This is what I'm going to do.
There
you know
you
what
go.
I'm saying?
This
is what, and then he starts going into that and he hits that. But somewhere along the lines, he went away from that and he went to Donald Trump is the most racist, the most sexist, the most misogynistic. But when you do that, and he never did that before until this time, you're saying that his supporters are racist, misogynist. You know what I'm saying? And you're not accepting the fact that they voted for this guy. Like you said, the bull in the China shop came along and offered all these things for these blue collar workers to fix the trade deals, everything that your Democrats screwed up.
Yeah.
And then you make it about this guy being awful. You're not accepting the fact and that you're not taking on the responsibilities and the actual weight that was put on by the Democrats themselves. They're the one who caused a lot of these problems. And you're not being accountable for them by saying he's the most racist, sexist, whatnot. You should be saying, the freaking Democrats are so bad that they elected somebody who can be considered the most racist, sexist. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, it's just kind of, you see what Tulsi's all about. And Dave, talk about policy. The woman is great on policy. Go up and down the list. When I went to New Hampshire to cover the primaries out there, and we went to the arena, the main arena there, where they had all the Democrats there, all their representatives, I talked to a lot of Tulsi followers. I even filmed them. Okay. The number one reason for 70% of the people I talked to, the reason why they voted for Tulsi Gabbard, the main piece of policy was the Securing Elections American Act, right?
Yeah.
She's the only one to talk about open source, which is a big issue right now because the fact that we're using proprietary software in our elections is just disgusting. You know what I'm saying? You could go up and down the list. Policy. If you're a progressive, if you're a leftist or right libertarian, just recently her bills, she's there. She's better than anyone across the board when it comes to a populist mentality. She is there.
Free speech. Free speech. I would stop. A lot of people would just stop. Okay, you had me at free speech, or you had me when you said, let's end. That's the first video I did, I think. She had me at regime change war, ending regime change. She had me at that point. I wanted to listen. I used to work for Campaign for Liberty a few years ago. That's Ron Paul's organization, or an offshoot of Ron Paul, when he ran for president, and he ran up against the same crap in the Republican Party that Tulsi, probably not even as hard as Tulsi ran into, like a buzzsaw, like the NPR interview, the Assad Todi stuff. I mean, you go down the list. I mean, that NPR, the one where, I don't know if you remember the one where she walked out, Tulsi Gabbard walks out. And this woman she's just on, you could tell it's like the CIA had said, okay, this is what you need to say to Tulsi Gabbard, and just keep saying it. And if she has an answer, say it again. And
Assad on MSNBC. It was ridiculous. They never wanted to stop talking about it, but you still just look at the policies. There was a lot of people I knew. There was, a lot of Muslim supporters that like, she's trying to end these wars in all these countries over here. Nobody's doing that. And then they also twist the fact when she says I'm a hawk on war and I'm a dove on free, or whatever it is and stuff. They don't understand the specific type of Wahhabist, Salafist, jihadists that she's talking about. The ones who are funded directly by the Saudi Arabian government. The one that Obama compared to farmers and workers, and then she got in trouble for going after that. Because once again, people don't understand the policy and what's going on in these countries and stuff. So any step of the way they tried to twist her narrative, twist her words, they did so. And she just kept taking it and taking it. Listen, she got hit harder than Bernie did in this election. They called her a Russian asset, Hillary Clinton. I mean, they went after her hardcore.
And you know what they also did? That was purposeful, and I'm sure you figured that out. Was when they said, "Oh, they're grooming a third party candidate. They're grooming." At that point, I went on and I said, "Well, she can't run third party because if she runs third party, she's fulfilling their prophecy." And at that point, they knew exactly what they were doing, because they knew that she wasn't going to go anywhere, because they weren't going to let her go anywhere. And if she started a game, I mean, she's got like what, 828,000 followers on Twitter. Okay,
she's getting up there. She's coming up on 1 million. Yeah.
This is somebody who ran for president. You know, percentage wise, didn't finish very high, because you know we could dive into that. But the point is, I mean, you had all these high profile, Mayor Pete. You know, it was like the Mayor Pete month, and then it was the Elizabeth Warren month, and then they just went through all of them. You know, remember
they started with Kamala. Remember back in the days, they started with Kamala, and it was like, okay,
she's
and what a treat that was. I still love that moment in that debate. I got to tell you, David, a lot of people knew that was coming. Some people on the inside knew that exactly it was coming. I saw a dude who worked for her campaign, did some digital stuff, and he was saying he was on Blaze, and he was like, yeah, well, she did preparation for everybody just in case something occurs. It just so happened that the moment presented itself. I'm gonna go against that and say I think a lot of us knew and saw that that attack on Kamala was coming. We knew it was coming on Elizabeth Warren, but unfortunately, she got saved by a commercial.
Commercial break. I always
say
commercial break. Oh, we got to go to commercial, and hold that thought. Don't even hold that thought. We'll go to somebody else when we come back. Yeah. Wow. Though, I mean, and you could write a book about this campaign, about all the different things. Like each day she goes on a show and she gets blindsided. There was this guy on Fox News. I want to pound him. His name is Leland Vittert. He was such a piece of human debris, neo-conservative to the core, and he's basically doing. I mean, talk about. I mean, this would be a case for sexism, and I'm not usually into that stuff. But he's like, no, like that. Let's like point this finger at her.
Yeah.
And I'm going, dude, she's in the military. She could take you, man. You better.
David? When I first started following Tulsi, I was like, okay, I was still sold on Bernie Sanders because I didn't think that Tulsi had the ability to really rise up there and win. And, I was like, okay, she's a pretty cool candidate, whatnot and stuff. But as I continued to go to a lot of her rallies and follow her, the thing that impressed me the most, and being here following this Democratic Party in the great state of California, where we have a supermajority Democratic Party, but still there's homeless people everywhere, whatnot. But let's get power back to the Democrats. Their game plan is this: the Democrats use the media to control the narrative. Never talk about your opponent. Don't debate your opponent.
Right.
Just keep them in the dark. Don't answer questions from the press unless it's a setup situation. In other words, you see Kamala Harris come out of the room with the blinders on and people are trying to ask her questions. I got thrown out of that arena in New Hampshire for trying to ask Pete Buttigieg if he would drop the charges on Assange. But the thing about Tulsi Gabbard was amazing is that every single one of her rallies, they would find out where media is, set them up and say, listen, as soon as we're done with the town hall or the speech or whatever, we'll come over. We'll give you a press gaggle. We'll let you answer any question you want, ask any question you want. We'll do that for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we're going to go back to shaking hands and taking pictures for the people who came.
Yeah.
Every single friggin' time. David, there was at one time that she wouldn't step up and face us and say, let's go. And she knew who we were. Yeah. And even still knowing who we were, she knew that hard questions were coming. I asked her about Hong Kong and China, like I said. Fiorella asked her about Kashmir. We were asking.
I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known the answer to Fiorella. I would have been like, what? Kashmir? What's going on there?
Yeah. And like I said, these questions that we asked, me on Hong Kong, her on Kashmir, she knew the questions are coming. We're not going to get easy questions from the Convo Couch. Whether they like us or not, they're going to ask us the hard questions. Tulsi never strayed away from any reporter, anybody asking her questions. I remember a town hall in New Hampshire when some dude busted in and he was just fixated on the Council of Foreign Affairs, and he's screaming over, what about the Council of Foreign Affairs? Like he's interrupting the whole thing. And she's like, dude, what are you doing? You're interrupting this whole thing. She said, what about the Council of Foreign Affairs? Like, what about the Council of Foreign Affairs?
Right.
Well, oh, she goes, I have no role in it right now. I was a junior member years and years ago with Dennis Kucinich. What do you want to know about it? Like, she doesn't stray away from anything. She doesn't hide from anything. She faces the fire. And when you see the Democrats game, you establish the Democrats, it's hide, shut out, Don't debate your opponent. Don't ask
No.
questions to independent media. Stay in a comfortable position where you're safe.
Right.
And you see Tulsi doing the opposite, going on shows they know they'll attack her. They're going to try to make her uncomfortable. She'll face the fire. That's what we want in a leader. That's what we got in Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. Amen. Wow. That's you're on fire, brother. I'm glad this is on tape. People are going to see this. That was good stuff.
Well, that's the most impressive thing, David. When you see that, when you can I'm going to go after you and me, we know areas where we're Tulsi we don't like. Like, I bet you right now, if she was there and you asked a question, you asked her about HR 666. Is it 46? Is it something? She's it's going to come. She's not going to hide from it. She's going to answer it. And to me, that's integrity. That's facing the fire. The Democrats, the Democratic Party, all they do is hide. Nancy Pelosi hasn't debated in 30 years, and she won't even acknowledge Shahid Buttar.
Yeah, well, and right, and and you're talking about hide. And right now, we got a guy who's running for president basically from his basement. Okay, and people are thinking, oh, well, it's going to be better than Trump. No, it's not.
No way.
Better than Trump. No, there's no way. And everybody, you've got your 100 reasons list there to vote for Biden.
Jesus Christmas.
It's a joke. And here we go again. It's like the Tim Canova thing in slow motion, and we're watching it, and it's like, you're gonna do it again. You did it in 2016 with Hillary. You're doing it again with Biden. And God forbid if Biden wins, that means we're gonna have more war. Look, Trump didn't get us necessarily out of a war, but he didn't start any new wars. And he talks in a way that I haven't heard a president since Eisenhower or Kennedy talk. I haven't heard that. So I take that over Biden. He's going to say, I trust the generals. I trust, because that's what the whole thing is going to be. I trust the military industrial complex. I trust Wall Street. Oh, that Wall Street. We want to do things for Wall Street because those are my donors. Those are my donors. I'm not saying Trump doesn't get money from some of those people too, but Trump's not out there basically winking and nodding. Remember what Biden said? Nothing's really going to change. Remember that?
Systemically. Yeah, he said that. Yeah.
Nothing.
Can I give you a little piece of saving grace, though, about this election? David is an election integrity activist who knows this stuff systemically. It's a lot easier to fix a primary than it is a general election. A general election is two parties coming in there. Two parties can protest. It's a whole different ball game. Lawyers have to get involved, maybe the Supreme Court, whatnot. But it's a lot harder to fix a general election than it is a primary. In fact, in a primary, and this is why a lot of the neo-progressives and all these people, and why you're so, I'm so just pissed at Bernie for never protesting these elections and stuff like that, is that the Democratic Party lawyers said in a federal courtroom, Nico House was there, Jared Beck, that they don't, not only did they cheat, but they have the right to cheat, and they can go into the back room filled with cigar smoke and pick whoever they want. Well, they did it with Joe Biden this time again. But a general election, a lot harder to fix, a lot more obstacles. So let's see. I think the cover of COVID is presented an opportunity for the Democrats to get a lot of these mail-in ballots through because they flooded the market with them. Yep. But we're going to see about the protections against them. And it really does suck because you're going to have people out there whose vote should count, not count, because there's going to be discrepancies across the board. But the Democrats never fixed this problem on their end as well. And they can't just point the finger at Donald Trump and say, hey, look what's going on. No, they've taken advantage of this problem. Is way back is when Kennedy beat Nixon, stuffing the ballot box in two places, in Chicago with Daddy Jack Kennedy and in Lyndon Baines Johnson in Texas, put thousands or hundreds of thousands of dead people on ballots to get John F. Kennedy over the top. So they've been using this mechanism. They used it before. I believe when it came to California, because you need to get 15% viability to even get on the board. Joe Biden was polling around 8%, 9%, whatnot. He ended up with 26%. And I can tell you this, David, it wasn't those people that were waiting online for 6-7 hours that were voting for Joe Biden. Nope. Those votes came in, I believe, but once again, we can't have an autopsy. We have a 1% audit. I believe they came in through the mail-in ballot process. And that's why when Obama was whipping the phones and getting the guy in second place to drop out for the guy in fifth place, those wheels were already in motion. Wouldn't you like to subpoena those phone calls to Buttigieg, to Amy Klobuchar, to see what Obama said? Because I can tell you this much, ladies and gentlemen, the fix was in.
Oh yeah. I think Bernie won. I think Bernie landslided California, but it looked as though Bernie just barely won California, which is
he looked like he won big, but he should have won huge. Look what happened in Nevada. Yeah. Nevada was a caucus. You couldn't cheat it. Too many cameras in there. He blew out the pack.
Yeah.
You go to South Carolina, you get these DRE machines, which are the direct response ones. In other words, you don't even give a paper trail with half the ones in South Carolina. You go right into the machines. Your vote is casted. That's it. Proprietary software. You can't look at it. What they tell you are those results. And they have a lot of friends over there in the Clyburns and that area, whatnot. Easy to fix election. No paper trail, no audit. There you go, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Let's go now.
Yeah, that Clyburn endorsement was like, you could see that there was just like a sea change in everything, like all this momentum that Bernie had. And they were going to South Carolina. I don't think the Bernie team really worked South Carolina anyway. I think they could have worked it harder, and I think they just figured they would move on to another
Tulsi
state.
But let me point out, since it's Tulsiology, Tulsi's team did not do a good job right there as well. They didn't get Nico House out there early. Nico House should have gone to South Carolina. He's from North Carolina, that South Carolina area. That's the whole thing. You got to, what I'm saying? The thing, the beauty about Tulsi's campaign, it was that it was small. They didn't let too many special interest in. They did early, and they got rid of it and stuff like that. But then the wires of communications to do the right thing, to boost up in the areas you need to boost up, were a little bit lacking. That was the thing when it came to South Carolina. Nico House should have been out there a month early, out there knocking on doors, getting people aligned. But then again, it doesn't make a difference if you're not going to check the security of these elections.
No,
David, in a primary, the Democratic Party proved in court that not only could they cheat, they have the right to cheat, right? So if that's not been overturned, if that hasn't been looked upon, if we're not going to have clean elections, then you remove WikiLeaks out of the situation, which gave us all the evidence. Right. Now you're doing the same thing at a higher level, and you're getting away with it a lot easier. No way.
Yeah,
nothing you can really do.
Yeah, and this is a good sort of segue over to censorship, because right now, obviously, you guys are. Tell us about what's going on with your channel right now.
Well, we just received. Yesterday was our 3-year anniversary. We did our show yesterday for 3 years ago. It was our very first show. It was on Facebook. It wasn't at YouTube on the time. Eventually, we got to YouTube and we started hitting it there. Yeah. But you know what our show is all about. We're those people on the left, like that whole family of people who are like anti-interventionists. We're pro-civil liberties. We don't want to be censored whatsoever. I do cover a lot of stuff pedophilia wise. You know what I'm saying? I'm not one of those guys who dives too deep into it, but I look at what's going on and we present it. Yeah. Well, we did a story about 4 months ago, a little bit over 3.5-4 months ago, about the Wayfair scandal that was out there. And I don't know if anybody's heard about it. Wayfair, this company, was selling these cabinets for about $15,000, $16,000. Yep. Johnny Tsunami, our engineer, double checked the story, produced the story, went over and looked. He looked at the same cabinets that were selling for $500, whatnot. The names of the cabinets were people who were missing. They were already censoring somebody who put that up on TikTok as far as what went on. So we just did a whole story about it. We talked about it. They had this symbolism about the boys, the same one coming off the FBI's website and whatnot. And we did a story about it. Now, the one time we got dinged before, David, and this is where it gets really, really hairy, we were forced to take it down. We got a warning, was our Super Tuesday coverage in California. What we did is this couch that I'm sitting on right now was here with Nico House, and all we did was cover the election. We talked to people in Texas. We talked to people in other areas. Well, Fiorello went from poll to poll to poll to poll to poll and gave us updates of what's going on. Now, we already knew Los Angeles was going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
The job I want is Dean Logan's job, who's the registrar. I come from the restaurant industry, and I used to open up restaurants. I was a consultant. I was a trainer. I would get everybody in place. I'd get the aces in places. So the way we run our elections, I know I can go and run them well. We knew that these elections were going to be shit from a suppressant point of view, where they wouldn't have their crap together, and you'd have long lines, suppressed vote, people not waiting around. And who does that really affect? The more populist, leftist, liberal candidate, for the people who show up, the young hipsters who want to show up for Bernie Sanders, get their sticker, the people who don't have much time, and the Latino vote they suppressed. Yeah. So when we saw that whole system coming at us that way, we knew that it was going to be a shit show. So on Super Tuesday, we covered it. Fiorello went to this line. She went to that line. We showed the parking situation. We showed them waiting 7 hours in UCLA, whatever the case may be. A couple of days later, YouTube comes back and they remove the content and said, this is not suitable content. It goes against our guidelines. Eventually, they send us the guidelines. We look down and it says, you cannot mislead people on elections or fraud or anything like that whatsoever. So once again, we get into the censorship now, once again, and we've been telling people, it's, being on the left, trying to speak to these, what I call neo-progressive Bernie Sanders people that don't pay any attention to this subject whatsoever. Like, ladies and gentlemen, you got to pay attention to this.
Right.
You cannot be happy with Alex Jones being the platform, because they're going to deplatform us next, and we interview and show your candidates, and then they're going to deplatform you after that.
Right.
So the censorship has come in, and because of that election and that Wayfair video, we are now taken down for a week with a strike, and we have to protest the situation. And I really don't see us doing anything wrong. And like I tell my progressive friends that they need to get it, is that, listen, it's not up for the government, Silicon Valley, or these networks to tell you what is right or wrong. That's for you to decide. If you're not inciting violence, then you should not be the platform. But this is where we are, Dave. The Hunter Biden story, the Wayfair stuff, Julian Assange, and nobody's saying anything. Not the Squad, not Bernie, only T, right?
Well, I want to add one thing.
Go ahead.
The World Health Organization that, last week said that these lockdowns, they said it. They said, the WHO said that the lockdowns were causing more harm than good, and that they should end. But what do I hear? Crickets. Okay. And if you share that information, I mean, you got to go underground. You got to go like on BitChute, or, I don't know if you still have your platform over on Rockfin. I mean, maybe you can share
we do.
there.
That's where we're rocking it. We're rocking it on Rockfin.
Yeah. But I mean, again, I'm not trying to, it's just that I have a libertarian friend who said to me, look, I mean, these are private companies, and this is we both know where this argument's going.
Oh, yes.
And I said, but wait a minute, this is like a public utility. This is the only game in town. If it, and people aren't, you know what I mean? It's like you build up this giant platform and you tell everybody at the beginning, oh, it's YouTube. It's about you. That's why they call it YouTube. You upload your videos. Remember in the early days, it's like, stupid cats, and the videos are still out there, and people still make it. My son watches hours and hours of these mindless things where kids are jumping into swimming pools with 1 million balls shooting out, and you're like, oh, it's got 12 million views. Maybe I should do that instead of what I'm doing.
I know, right? Buy a husky and an otter.
Exactly.
But David, even still, when it comes to that situation, Section 270 of the what is it? What's the act? I don't have it in front of me. Of the Telecommunications Act says that they have a choice, 270, right? You have to be either a platform or a publisher. If you're a platform, that's civil discourse across the board. You can't pick winners and losers. And if you do so, we will not hold you liable. You can't be sued for something being put on your platform. But if you're going to pick and choose winners, you know what I'm saying? Then you're a publisher. You're liable to be sued and whatnot. And you have to make that distinction up front. These platforms, they say they're platforms, but they're publishers. So they are breaking the antitrust laws anyways. So even if they are a private company, it's kind of funny, because when I caught Kamala Harris in a press conference at the DNC, I doubled down on that question. I said, Senator Harris, you said you want to suspend Donald Trump's Twitter or take it down. Now, for some of us civil liberties people and our First Amendment rights that we want to protect, are you still okay with this? Sure enough, just like her and the rest of the Democrats. Another reason not to vote for these Democrats. They don't care about censorship. They don't care about our civil liberties. In fact, they're cheering it on because they feel it's anti-Trump. Okay. But that's what they do. So they're even still breaking this law right now in 270. So take your private company argument and shove it up your ass is what I'm telling people right now, because you don't know the law and you don't know the rules. You still have to abide by these rules. And when a company becomes that big anyways, whether it's private or not, that's the time when we should take it over and make it a public utility, because they just simply have too much power, especially when it comes to freedom of the press, freedom of the speech. They're not supposed to be suppressing this information. They have no right to do it. Either abide by the rules or get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, good. Good. I mean, and I made the argument, we hear a lot about collusion. You heard about Russian collusion. Well, I mean, who are these big tech companies colluding with? Who are they? They're colluding with the government. They're colluding with a certain branch of the government or a certain section of the government. These career politicians, these people that have been there forever, the neoliberals, the neoconservatives, the people who want, this is what Biden is. Biden is never Trump. You got all here in Florida, dude, you should see some of these ads on TV where it's like, wait a minute, that's Trump's platform right there. They just did a whole Biden ad, America First, going to bring jobs back, going to bring Joe Biden's going to bring manufacturing. The guy who voted for NAFTA,
exactly, and it was pushing the TPP. Yeah.
It's
and he's trying to out Trump. That's the crazy thing right now. The switch to we're not going to ban fracking. I'm not going to defund the police or. And I'm saying they made the switch. They're trying to out Trump. You're never going to win.
No,
you're never going to win when you try to out Trump. And that's what I'm saying. If it is a halfway decent election, which who knows, Trump should really run away with this thing because people are still running over each other to go to a Trump rally. I think they had 12 people out of gymnasium the other day. I heard somebody going, when I say Joe, you say fire, Joe, fire, Joe. Like the Hillary thing, nobody's showing up. Nobody's enthused. Give me a break already.
Oh man, the censorship too is bad. Like I talked about for health information, very bad. I mean, even from say you were just not political and you're concerned, you want to like go back into the workforce and you want to be safe, and you want to make sure that the world's not going to collapse. And each day you're told that it's getting worse and there are more cases and people are dying, but they're not telling you. They're saying it's COVID related. Listen to the news carefully. It's COVID related. COVID related. And there was a little report that came out from the CDC, and the PolitiFact checkers were like, boom, boom, because it said 6% total from all of these 200,000 supposed deaths. And again, I'm not saying people aren't dying. I'm not saying that COVID isn't a thing. What I'm saying is the statistics are misleading. They're very, very misleading. And when they tell you it's only 6% of all of those people who died specifically just like they could pin it on just COVID-19, and then the fact checkers come along and they go, well, people are misinterpreting this to mean that it was just COVID, but it's actually these other illnesses were caused by COVID. And, you have to lump them all together. And it's like, well, if somebody's morbidly obese or somebody, we could go down the list. You know where I'm going with this.
That's how you politicize this situation. You try to use it against Donald Trump since he's the man in charge and stuff. Right. I think it's a fair statement to say it's COVID related because I heard that COVID is the cousin to the flu, right? They're like cousins. Right. And now people aren't dying of the flu anymore over the last this whole pandemic. People have been dying of the COVID. And, what I'm saying? It really is. I think a lot of us, this situation ties into with the whole mask and our civil liberties and that HR 666 we talk about. It's just a cluster F of what's going on. And I think a lot of people on the left are still trying to hope that this is his disastrous, they're saying, handling of the COVID crisis is going to really sack him. But I don't know if it's gonna and stuff like that, because not only have the Democrats further fucked up by not presenting any economic solutions or renter solutions, whatnot like that. It's just been one of these situations where both parties our whole government's a mess. But me personally, or, some guy from swing state is going to probably say, I'd rather stick with the asshole I know than the other asshole I definitely know, but I won't know what he's going to do when he gets in because he's not going to be in charge. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, and the censorship sucks, right? Yeah. I mean, the turning point for me, Dave, was when I saw AOC going after Zuckerberg, and I was waiting for her. I'm like, all right, let's see her go after him for Cambridge Analytica, right? Let's talk about the real issue here. Selling off our personal data and using it against us, all that shit and stuff like that. Yeah. But instead of going after him for that, she used her time to go after him, to shame him for posting fake news political ads for her opponents, okay? And then people jumped on that bandwagon, and they're still jumping on that bandwagon. It's a form of virtue signaling. It's the virtuous cloak, I call it, and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, take that person down. He's bad. Get rid of Alex Jones. He's bad. Silence his Twitter. He's bad. You know what I'm saying? And they're cheering this on. This censorship is running wild right now. And if we don't stop this shit in its tracks, they're going to forever have their boot on our necks. If you control the narrative, if you control speech, you control the species, and you can get anything done. And they are using the keys to the kingdom to brainwash people, keep certain information down. And this is some scary times. Would you believe that the left is worse than this than the right nowadays? We're in bizarro world over here, my man.
Well, and that's the thing. I tell people I'm kind of an older dude. So I grew up in the 70s. I knew that the left was the party I didn't always agree with. I mean, I was kind of young, but you kind of inherit the information from, as you get older, oh yeah, the left was more, they would fight to the death. Free speech, they may disagree. And they used to say this, they said, we may disagree with what you're going to say, but we will fight to the death to protect that right,
You're right
to say it. Because they understood this was Thomas Jefferson. This was the First Amendment. And I tell people, if you read into what the First Amendment says, it's egregious speech. It's offensive speech. It's some of the worst kind of speech. And the reason they did that is because they knew where we would go. We are where they told us we would go if we didn't protect it. And you know what? The worst term, the term that has hurt the cause of free speech more than anything else, is hate speech. As soon as you say, this guy is speaking hate speech. You know what hate speech is? I'm not saying you can't say hateful things and they're not hateful, but hate speech is something that you disagree with. That's what hate speech is. And what it does is it's like calling somebody a racist. Instantly, you're a racist, go away, don't talk to me. And so you're just paralyzed. You're like, well, number one, I'm guilty of hate speech. Number two, I'm a racist. Now what do I do? How do I argue? If I say something, I'm going to be called these names, and that just paralyzes the conversation rather than saying, you know what, like we used to do in the old days, Pasta, we used to say, you know what, I respectfully disagree with you. I think we can do this better. I have an idea. Let's talk it through. Maybe we can compromise. Maybe we can work something out. But no, it's this tribal sort of, I'm going to go kamikaze on you. And whether you like it or not, this is what it's going to be like. And you better come back at me. I mean, that's why Twitter is like, I do Twitter for an hour or two, and I'm like, that's way too long. I go for a walk, get out, take my mask off and go for a walk outside, because we are, as a species, you're right. Democracy is done. I mean, America, the idea of America, the way it was founded, I'm not saying the founders had it all right. They had a lot of crap wrong. But when it comes to some of these amendments, which have protected us for centuries, if we're not willing to stand up for them, then we don't have that concept anymore. We have something completely different. It's like a corrupted organism, and I don't know how you fix it.
Yeah. Well, you're just saying that because you're privileged, David. So you say what the hell you want to say and stuff. I remember when they used to burn the flag burning, the left was standing behind that. Remember that back in the days? Like it was like, oh, they're burning a flag. The Republicans, that's disgusting. What you're saying to a veteran, or you're saying to somebody who loves this country is just pitiful. It's like, no, it's you have the right to burn that flag.
Absolutely.
It's like a form of freedom of speech of sorts and whatnot. Right. But now the left has abandoned that. It's identity politics and cancel culture, and we're going to have a long way out of the woods. I don't know how many people the squad has got hoodwinked out there. Some people are realizing it. Some people are noticing it. But, AOC, when she's the next Barack Obama, as my partner calls her, and she tries to run, she might win a Democratic primary, but she'll never win a general election if it's a fair election, because of her stances of censorship, her lack of foreign policy knowledge and all that stuff. But it does boil down to this whole freedom of speech kind of conversation. And like I said just before, it's just growing up in the 70s and 80s, I'm like old like you and stuff like that. It's like, where the hell did the Democrats go on this thing? They've abandoned it. They've walked away. And in fact, they've doubled down on the censorship themselves. And it's scary times. And to see us get censored over putting up a Wayfair show where we didn't really make any insinuations. We just presented the evidence that was out there and questioned it. To just easily get taken down like that.
Dude, I've seen
covering the election.
Yeah, I've seen articles and coverage on that are 10 times more potent. No offense to the Wayfair thing is a thing. But and these aren't things that you can get on, you have to go to actual websites. You can't get them on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. And the last 2 or 3 months, the pedo stuff, it'll blow. I mean, you already know. I'm sure you already know.
You know who owns YouTube? The CEO of, her name is Susan Wojcicki, and she was just on CNN the other day, right?
Yeah.
Dude, it's scary, dude. It's scary that Silicon Valley is making the decisions on what freedom of speech is. There's no oversight for this whatsoever. And I have arguments with my progressive friends. Like, oh, we can't let the FEC and Ajit Pai be the ones to control this stuff. It's like, listen, we have to believe in institutions again. Yeah. If we don't like Ajit Pai, we got to get rid of the president to get rid of them, or the next person, and we can lobby to get that person out. No. But social media can't just run around unchecked and do whatever they want. Susan Wojcicki, who's the CEO of YouTube, right? She gave $50,000 to the Hillary Victory Fund in 2016. I wonder what she gave up to 2020. But the two things you really can't talk about, and it's so funny that she's a Hillary Clintonite, you can't talk about pedophilia, you get taken down, Oh, Bill Clinton. I wonder why that is. Can't talk about rigging elections and stuff, what goes on with there. Oh, 2016, they admitted that they cheated. So they take you down and they suppress your voice if you're talking against their narrative. And we have entered a dark, dark, scary time when they're able to do that. The fact that I can't go and download some stuff and upload stuff on my channel right now, they want to seize our momentum. They want to silence us. They want to demonetize us. They want to hit us in our pocket. Yeah. Nonetheless, and I know I heard you cry about this shit before, David, the money that they take away from us. If we go back 7 years, 8 years, we would be making 4 times the amount of money we made because it was a halfway decent system out there. But now they take your content, they profit off you, they silence you if you don't speak the narrative.
Right.
It's dark, dark, dark times. Yeah. And these people on the left better get their head out of their ass and start realizing this shit, because if they fall for this cancel culture that we're taking down that person because that person's mean to protect you, oh, man, I'm sorry. That boot is going to be on that neck. Watch.
It's over. It's like I said, it's this election is going to determine a lot of things. It's going to determine if we're over, because if they pull this off where Biden's in and everybody kind of says, okay, now what? At that point, if do all these people who were all upset about Trump, they go back to their thing. They always say, well, we'll just go back to normal at that point. Okay, so normal means 8 years of stagflation that we had under Obama. It means endless wars and ramped and turn the dial up. Okay, what else does it mean? It means rudderless leadership, uninspiring leadership, whether Kamala takes over or not. We know that's and America is a better place because of that. And again, this isn't a campaign. Right now, I want to go out and vote for Joe Jorgensen or write Tulsi Gabbard in. I mean, the thing is, Americans don't I thought better of my country. And I thought, like, when Tulsi Gabbard ran, that more people were going to recognize greatness. Okay. And I'm not saying that because, again, I went through the 4 stages of grief. I did not like the way she dropped out. I did not like the Jimmy Dore interview, blah, blah, blah. We can rehash all that stuff. But when censorship and, demonetization, you mentioned that. Remember the old days, I went over 1,000. I'm like, yes, I'm going to get monetized. I put out a video, right? And I get like 1,000 views on it. But what happens is they demonetize me. And then I wait 3 days for them to say, okay, your video is okay. We had it under review. And then I got like 100 more views after that.
Yeah. I'm like, they also go to the algorithms, right? We have to talk about this because this is control right here. We talk about our civil liberties and the censorship. This is control because they have all the keys to the kingdom. They shadow ban you. The algorithms, they always go, well, it's the algorithm. Yeah, but that algorithm was written by a human being. So don't try to hoodwink me to think that you're not trying to control us or suppress us. Remember when our videos were done, which would come up in the recommended queue?
Yes.
Now, if we talk about something, they'll kick it to MSNBC and CNN, and all those slews of videos will come up. Rather than when my video comes up, David Spurrier's video is playing next, Ron Paul's playing next, Jimmy Dore, whatnot.
Right.
We get way more traction, more views, more people going out there. Yeah. They also control the algorithms to not put us in the queues. So there's so much they can do, whatnot. And when you do that, and this is what I try to tell those people on the left that get with it, I'm like, why do you think there are so many people out there who are against Medicare for all? Yeah. Why? Because they're controlling the narrative. They suppress your voice of you saying that we need a Medicare system to help everybody else. They put somebody else's voice up that's going to talk directly against that, prop that up, put that up. So now people are voting against their own will and their own self-interest because why? They've controlled speech. They've controlled the narrative. And if you don't get that in control, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I watched a clinical psychologist talk about how he had never seen anything in his life as powerful from a psychological standpoint as you want to call it gaslighting, whatever you want to call it, as what social media does every single day. I mean,
every day,
the power that they have. You go on you go on Twitter a lot, right? What's over on what I did was I blew my page up to 150% to get rid of the sidebar. Plus I get the glasses on, so it's helpful. But I'm looking at it going, every sidebar article. Joe Biden didn't say anything wrong. Joe Biden was fact-checked and he was correct. Joe Biden Joe Biden woke up this morning, took a shit, and it was the best shit you've ever heard about. And
it turned to gold.
It turned to gold, and you could too.
Yeah. And that's where we're at. Listen, 80% of the information that Americans go through Google, right? Yeah. And I can tell you, when I just saw it was like, this is the end. Like, we covered the Democratic convention, the last convention that was in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And I hated it because I'm like, what the hell am I doing here anymore? I don't want to be around these people anymore. They don't inspire me, whatnot. But there was a press conference. And all right, we're going to go own this press conference. Let's go in there early. We got some seats in the front. Johnny, our engineer, put the microphone up front where they talk. We also had different areas in a room, our tech people standing, so we can get everybody's question recorded, heard, whatnot, and make a whole gaggle out of it.
Yeah.
So we did the whole press conference. 7 of 8 people showed up. Bernie Sanders didn't show up, and I was going to hit him with a Assange question, so he escaped me.
Who's that? Who's Assange?
Assange. That's a complicated question. Next question. We'll talk about that later. Next question. But we got 7 other people there, whatnot, that Amy Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Andrew Yang, Tom Steyer, Cory Booker. We had Cory Booker. We put him on record saying that he's going to stand behind the OAS, So, but what happens is we go into the room, we get all the footage, we get all the video, we come back to our studio. Johnny, our engineer, literally spends the next 12 hours cutting up, separating them, putting them out there. And we get no traction on them. We get no views on YouTube.
Wow, man.
I go into Google and I start looking in, and I literally type in Cory Booker, Democratic Convention, Long Beach. It was on page 12. The first 2 were Cory Booker's own page where he cut up stuff he wanted to put out there. And the rest were just articles that had nothing to do with the situation, nothing going on. I kept looking and looking and looking. And eventually I caught up to him, and it says Cory Booker, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're controlling the narrative out there.
I know.
This is something very dangerous. When 80% of the news information has to go through Google, Alphabet has too much power, and you got to take it away from them, or you got to make them play fair. How about the fact, David, that they can give you a strike and not even tell you what it's about?
Sure. I know. You've violated our community guidelines, and I'm thinking, what? I mean, I got another channel that I have as you might know.
This is a problem, David. If we don't get a hold of this right now, and I wish people on the left, my Bernie Sanders friends who literally, and I would have arguments with some of them, and I would talk about, well, you guys don't know enough about, and I'd like you to learn a little bit more about foreign policy and our civil liberties, because that's really important. You sound like a Trumper.
Oh.
Why? Because I didn't say Medicare for all, a Green New Deal?
Yeah.
This is where we're at. This is what we got. Well, and if we don't get a hold of this problem, I'm not saying this crying just because I've got to strike that. We saw what happened with that Hunter Biden article. I mean, Sagar from The Hill, he said it plain and simple. We've crossed the shit line that we can't go back of right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, well, again,
get awake.
I go and I surf and I get articles from all these different places, left sources. I got some from the Blaze the other day about the lockdown, and it was legit, and it was from the WHO, like I said, but that doesn't play anywhere. Nobody knows about it. You turn on your local news, I'm sure it's even worse. Me and my wife, we drink coffee every morning, we watch the local news, and I'm throwing things at the TV. I'm like, it's propaganda. It's propaganda. It's 12 new cases today. 12 new cases. Oh gosh, what are we gonna do? The world's gonna
How about the clock and the numbers right there on CNN? They have the numbers all the time. They politicize the shit out of this thing, whatnot, and stuff. But anything going against their narrative or challenging their narrative gets hidden, gets demonetized, gets thrown away, gets kicked off.
Right.
The deal. And really, to tell you the truth, I know it's because we do this. It's a lot more evident to us, and we see it and how it affects our lives, because that's the way they want to do. They want to ding you monetarily wise. They want to make sure that Dave Spurrier has to work 2 other jobs, and he can't do more of this, and he can't talk about Tulsi Gabbard. So they ding you there too as well. They ding you in Google, they ding you in your pocket, and they try to get us away, the truth tellers, to telling what's going on. Not even if we're truth tellers, just something that's not their narrative, against their narrative, which is healthy.
Yeah.
Not anymore, ladies and gentlemen.
No. Well, as a little side note to that, my channel has been stuck at about 7,016 subscribers now for about, 5 months or so, which I find a little bit interesting. And I went full Tulsi again, renamed the channel, told people on Twitter, put it out. People seem really happy and excited about it. I haven't picked up 0. I don't pick up any subscribers. I pick up a couple, I lose a couple. I pick up a couple. So
listen, at this point right now, we've gotten a lot of play. We've been doing some good work. We're starting to rise again slowly but surely. But they did that shit. Like, we went from 6,000 to 22,000, mainly because I was covering the Epstein story and I had some insider knowledge, people in Florida, whatnot, and it shot up. But it's like somebody saw us on the other end and like, turn off the faucet. Let's scrub their subscribers. We saw it with the Tulsi Gabbard tweet. How many times you have to go back and like that thing? This is a common practice for them. They get away with it. They're a private company, they say, but they're not held to any standards, and they are curtailing our freedom of speech here and the narrative. We need to get a hold of this thing. This is serious, David.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me come on to talk about this, because this is really just a kick right in the nuts, because they're trying to slow down the Convo Couch. And like Whitney Webb said, she was supposed to be on our show. She said the Great Purge will come before the election. I deemed October 15th.
Yeah.
Don't pick on Joe Biden Day, because they were removing the Hunter Biden situation and what was going on
everywhere.
The fact that they could do that. Wow.
Everywhere. Yep. And that article, it was like low hanging fruit. Oh, the New York, like I was telling you, the New York Post is suddenly, look, I know it's right of center, just like the New York Times supposedly is left. It's like neoliberal versus neoconservative, whatever it is. All right. The New York Post, been around since what, 1811, 1813, something like that. All of a sudden, I'm hearing from NBC News that it's a tabloid. It's a tabloid. It's the tabloid says, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is like mind control. This is right out of like a CIA thriller.
It is
or something.
right out of the CIA playbook. And you talk about it. Oh, you can't talk about Wayfair. It's a conspiracy theory. Take it down. What about Russiagate, you idiots? You assholes pushed Russiagate for 3.5 years and a soft coup, which I always love that question. Well, Donald Trump, will you concede power? They use the intelligence community in Obamagate over here. Biden was in the room. They suck him on General Flynn.
Thank you.
Brennan's notes it was a coup.
Thank you. It was
treason. It was like you're the ones who didn't want to give up the power and whatnot. Right. And now you declassify their information showing you that the Clinton campaign made it up. That was a conspiracy theory. You ran with it.
They've had this for 3 years. You know, the problem here, Pasta, is the FBI is the CIA, FBI are they're in the tank. They're doing this stuff. They sit on this information. They have, terrorist cells in the country. They sit on whatever they're doing. They're sitting on information that ordinarily they would come out and say, we don't care who the president is. We don't care what this is. This is a national security threat, and we need to bring it to everybody's attention. These alphabet soup agencies across the board, it's a libertarian argument at this point. I don't know. It's redundancy, and it's an ineffective agency, and I don't know why regular law enforcement can't take care of this, local law enforcement or whoever else. It's just redundant. And what they're going to do is take the information, and then they're going to come back and tell us, we took it, we took a look at it. We don't see anything really that rises to the level where we have to do anything about it. And I scratch my head whether it's the pedo stuff that you were talking about, or it's corruption, or it's ballot harvesting, or any of these things. You would think, hey, if you're tampering with a ballot, isn't that kind of like a federal issue? Isn't that like something that the FBI, everybody would get involved in and say, whoa, wait a minute, the vote is supposed to be sacred. It is my sacred thing. I wait to cast this vote, and I think about my choice carefully. And then some mailman somewhere says, oh, look, it's an R on this ballot, or it's a D on this ballot, because I can see through the envelope. Goodbye. Yeah. See you later.
And that's the thing. If they added simple tracking where it went there, listen, every 99% of our regime change, what do they do? Our regime change. Oh, their elections were not fair. They fixed their elections. If we looked at any of the standards they used to go into Bolivia or Venezuela or any of these countries, and we applied the same standard of their elections, okay, of why we can go take over. I would like the OAS to come over here and send in the federal guard to take over our elections, because they are a sham. I mean, really, we use the excuse of the elections. Then in a federal court, the Democratic Party says we have the right to cheat and pick who we want. Hello.
Well, and because they're basically saying that their primary is so closed off that you can't even be in it. That's what they're saying. This is a closed primary, Pasta. Not only you can be a Democrat and try to vote in this primary, but good luck with that.
Listen, somebody does a GoFundMe for his wife's sick with cancer, whatnot, takes a lot of money. You find out his wife's not sick with cancer. Yeah. They're gonna throw him in jail unless he returns all the money and makes him,
restitution,
slap on the wrist, whatnot. All right, shit like that happens, right? Okay, in the Democratic Party charter, it says that you have to have a democratic process. They won't get involved, all this shit. They're ignoring their charter. They're lying about their charter. Yeah. Why aren't they forced to return all their money, whatnot. You have a charter that's misleading people. That is fraud. But yet they get to get away with it, and they get to do what they want because, they're the establishment Democratic Party. They're in line with the deep state and the military industrial complex and the intelligence department, and they get bought off by everybody. So, they live by a different set of rules. I'm just waiting for the pitchforks, baby. And let's go right to Nancy's house first. I'm a vegan, but I'll eat the rich.
I'll go with you, brother. All right. So let's cover one more topic, and that's a good segue over to this topic. Now, what can we do politically? Because I think we have two dead political parties right now. I think you have Donald Trump, who's not really a Republican. I don't know what he is. I don't think he knows what he is. I think he used some Republican stuff, some of their right-wing stuff, but for the most part, they don't like him. But for the establishment, they don't like him. Say he wins, say he doesn't win. Okay, if he doesn't win, then you've got a quicker death, I think, over on the Republican Party in a sense, because the guy that everybody kind of said, okay, we're gonna put all our chips on him, and he doesn't win. And I think the Democrats are hoping for that because they're going to get some kind of resurgence, which they won't, because once people realize it's another shite sandwich that they're going to get for 4 or 8 years or whatever, they're going to say, wait a minute, this is worse. So you've been talking about, and I've been talking about, an independent party, a Green Party, Libertarian Party, Independence Party, movement for the bowels party, movement for people. Sorry, brother, I just couldn't help.
No, that's all right. Hey, listen, I didn't speak at their convention. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited either, pal. So
Brown wave is coming. Brown wave is coming either way. So what's your perspective on because it just seems like we're climbing.
Okay. Yeah.
And we can't go anywhere.
Right now I'm fishing. Right. I'm throwing a net into the water, seeing what I can catch, whatnot. I mean, there's been so many talks about what's going to happen. There's been talks that Tulsi Gabbard might come back and run as a Republican. Because if you remember, what happened is that the Republicans didn't cheat Donald Trump. Correct. The Democrats did cheat Bernie Sanders. So if that's a different vessel and you can really change that party and you have more of this populist right coming out, maybe somebody can run in that party. I think Sam Ronan tried to do that too as well, so I've looked into that, but I don't even know, that might be a fairy tale. MPP, you talked about your bowels, whatever. Come on, Dave. Listen, it's very nice to get a lot of famous people and whatnot, in your corner and whatnot, and go out there and speak at your convention and say all these things. But they're forgetting one big thing, the most important thing: ballot access.
Yes.
To get ballot access in all these states, I have a show coming up right now, not too long. Okay, it's damn near impossible. This two-party duopoly has put in barriers and hurdles in place that are almost damn near impossible to jump over. So unless you have a great ground game, which MPP does not have a lot of great activists on the ground. I know all these activists out here in California, they don't have them in a corner. How are you going to gain some momentum and really get that thing going? So as much as I love their platform, what they're doing, what they stand for, I personally like Nick Brana. I don't know what's going to happen of that, because there's a big void right there. And I think a lot of people have to realize that. I asked him that question about ballot access on my show, and he kind of, it's easy, whatnot. No. Okay. So I think no matter what happens, the mechanisms within the Democratic Party are never going to get past it. They're never going to allow it to happen. I can give you examples of the California Democratic Party, which has their own form of super delegates called pleos. So even though you have all these elected delegates, the pleos, which are picked out by the legislation, are always going to pick, institutional players that will keep their control. So we do have to do something outside of that party, which means we have two parties that have a decent amount of ballot access, right? The Libertarian Party and the Green Party.
Correct.
Well, the leadership in these parties right now are kind of a joke right now, right? You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest. I mean, I'm sorry. Don't get lost in the sauce. Howie Hawkins, really nice guy, but there's a reason he's 0 for 24. And I say, hey, man, if you're going to go 0 for 25, get it in the big one and go for that one too as well. But there's a split within that party in the Green Party where they have different types of members where are very socialist, whatnot. And that socialist entity, the leadership seems to be too authoritarian. They had a lot of fugaziness in their primaries that, a lot of people, Howie's never had to address, which his campaign manager had to speak for, whatnot. I had Kevin Zeese on the show. May he rest in peace, whatnot. But as soon as Kevin unfortunately we lost him and stuff, how he went back to the same rhetoric and in talking about the elections, it's almost like he doesn't know what he's talking about. So before Kevin came along, you had him talking about Primo Nutmeg in that bad, interview. And now you have him talking this hogwash about, I think they should impeach Trump on trying to fix the election. Like, asshole, three states Democrats just took you off the ballot. They cheat their own elections.
Right.
It's a bipartisan practice. Get your head out of your ass.
Right.
And let's fix these things. So the leadership there is very weak, but they have a bunch of leftist libertarians in that party, people I've talked to and stuff, who are for their freedom of speech, who are for their civil liberties, the same people who try to recruit Jesse Ventura in there, an ex-libertarian who believes in climate change and still believes in protecting your civil liberties.
Right.
So there's an opportunity, I think, after Howie gets less than 1% in this election. Maybe he might get over 1%, who knows? I mean, but the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, they're winning the battle of ideas.
Yes.
When you talk about a Green New Deal, when you talk about civil liberties and non-interventionists, these the progressives that like these issues, they exist and they were birthed out of the Libertarian Party and out of the Green Party.
Correct.
So the Green Party doesn't have the mechanisms for you to go in there and start, changing things, the corporate mechanisms to keep you down.
Yeah.
So my only suggestion would be is after this election plays out, let's get out of this Democratic Party for good.
Yeah.
Stop trying to deal with them. You're not going to reform it from the inside.
Nope.
That's a pipe dream. Remember they used to say that in New York, pipe dreams?
Yes.
That's a pipe dream.
It is.
You have to find a vessel outside of the Democratic Party. The MPP idea sounds good.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a really obtainable goal to get ballot access, to win some things. And then there's also what I call the Rogowski plan, my friend James Rogowski, who talked about what Bernie Sanders did. Yeah. Just finding candidates that can run as independent in these pockets over here that maybe can change the whole way things are worked in Congress. If you get 5 independents in 5 different areas, right, you change the whole landscape. And you get a little people in Congress kind of going to you, whatnot. Maybe they can form their own pack together of sorts and really sway votes. Be a block of people who are saying, hey, whatever you want passed, whether it be Republican or Democrat, you need these 5 votes to get over the top. You need us aboard. Come to us. Yeah. We'll see what happens. So it's to be continued when it comes to that idea. But I think everybody has to look at all the numbers, look at the big pictures, see what's in front of them. I know a lot of people are saying MPP, but like we talked about, Dave, if you don't have ballot access, you're working from way behind. And if you don't have ballot access, you better have boots on the ground. You don't need Jimmy Dore and all these other people speaking at your convention. You need the activists in the streets who are going to go out there and get you those signatures to get you on those ballots. And you don't have that. So until they obtain that mechanism, I think that they're just pissing in a fan, if that makes any sense. And we have to look at those other 2 parties and say, well, which one of these 2 parties can we really get in there and can we really reform? I think the Green Party is more appetizing because they do have this libertarian mindset inside them, where the libertarians, they still have that fiscal libertarian kind of mentality. That's the ruling class of that party. Yeah. That's not overcome. So it's going to be hard. But I think those are 2 avenues we have to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And you covered it really well there. And that was, I've been kind of politically homeless, and I was looking for a home, and I it's like the 3 bears mentality. I went in and I'm like, this Green Party seems kind of nice, but they're kind of authoritarian and their candidates aren't serious. I figured that out after interviews and after just hanging out in it for a while. I said, you know what? My mind was set on it. I'm like, well, if you like what Bernie had to say and Tulsi had to say, then the Greens are probably there for you. Now I'm kind of more, just on this election cycle, I'm more prone to think that the Libertarians protest vote, or to try to say to the, you know what it is? It's say to the general population that, whoa, how did they get 10%? Whoa, that's surprising. Well, look at the 2 candidates he got. It ain't that surprising. Now, as you talk about, like with the Libertarians, it's the Ayn Rand philosophy for the most part. And, there are people, I always say, well, how are you going to get people in the inner city to buy into this? They're waiting for anything, any kind of help. And most people, they're willing to work. They're willing to move up, but you're going to have to give them a step ladder if you want them to climb up to the bigger ladder. You know what I mean? And I've been on both sides of this. I've thought to myself, well, you're perpetuating something, a dependency and so forth. But on the other side of the equation is we've created a lot of these problems. So as a country, both political parties have done this. So it's kind of like the same mentality of when we create a problem, if we do a lockdown and then we go, well, you're locked down. I'm sorry you lost your job. I'm sorry you have no income. I'm sorry you're about to get thrown out of your house. I'm really sorry, and you're not doing anything to help people when you've screwed them. So that's my more Christian kind of compassionate side where I look at people and I go, they didn't do this. They didn't do it to themselves. We need to get it where there are more people getting into the middle class. How do we do that? All right. And perception is really important. I like, the idea that you talked about, I liked the best was these independent targeted candidates, just independents.
I call it the Rogowski plan.
The Rogowski party, whatever, the Spuria plan, whatever you want to call it. All right. I like that because what you say is, okay, we just built a coalition outside of your two-party network. We got a guy over in Oregon. We got a guy in Wisconsin. We got a guy in Florida. And they're all kind of on the same page. They might tailor their platform and their message for their constituents because that's kind of what you're supposed to do, right? You're not beholden to lobbyists. You're not beholden to the corporate party that's going to tell you, well, if you're a Republican, you have to check this box, this box, this box. So I like that the best. The other reason I like it is because when you say Green Party, a lot of people go, oh, you're talking about people who drive hybrids and
well, think about with Jesse Ventura, how they just blew this situation. They blew this situation. They put Ralph Nader on their ticket. He didn't believe in their platform. Jesse believed completely in their platform, not interventionist. Like if you were serious about a party, and I've heard a lot of people inside the Green Party who left the Green Party who say, well, why'd you leave it? He goes, well, it seems like the Green Party is happy where it's at. It doesn't want to move up. The people within power want to stay there because they make their money. They have their name. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough to get them by, and they're happy with being just being mediocre at best. Can you imagine if they had Jesse Ventura, who was recruited from early times, if they put him on the ballot? And some of their leaders really kind of pushed away from this situation, and it really is a shame. They would have been way over 5%, ballot access in 50 states. You could have renamed them, for Christ's sakes. And that's what somebody should do. Somebody should go in there, and you can say Pop Greens. What's that? Oh, that's the new populist Green Party. They're changing whatnot. You can do whatever and stuff like that, but that's the whole thing. Is
Populist Party USA.
Yeah. And Bernie Sanders was the poster boy child for the Rogowski plan. As an independent, you win right there. You can change so much. You can do whatever. So, I mean, there are avenues. There are things we can do. Like trying to get on a state ballot is really tough for like a state. But if I'm trying to get on just in this district and I have an independent candidate, that's something obtainable. That's something we can work together and create and get it done and get that person in the ballot in that district, especially as an independent. So, I mean, I'm homeless right now as a party myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm there with you, Dave. But we just have to wait and see what's going to come after this. We also are, as we're approaching this election, I think people are hunkered down in their ditches, World War I style, ready to go through it. But once the war ends, it's when those people come out of the trenches. Where do they go?
Where do they go?
We need leaders in the right place to lead. And it remains to be seen what party comes about this. If it's a new party, if it's an old party, changing a party, if it's an independent. But I think we can stick to our ideology and our values. I sound like Nancy Pelosi. But the issues that are important to us. That's what's going to bring people together, but then also talking to people who think differently than you. That needs to continue to happen and happen and happen and happen and happen until the populism really comes together and gets a candidate out there that we can stand behind.
Well, very awesome. And we'll kind of end on that note. Just adding to that though, is, I tweeted out, what real intersectionality looks like.
You did.
I said it's when the populist left and the populist right realize that it's them against the ruling class.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that me and you, and the Proud Boy and the Black Lives Matter person, we all have much more in common than those donkeys up at top controlling things. And that's what they don't realize, because the divide and conquer mentality and the tactic is still working. Instead of demonizing each other and fighting each other, let's talk. Let's come together, talk, get together and say, hey, it's much important to realize the power mechanism in play. We got to go after the power mechanism and not be divided anymore.
Good stuff, man. All right. So before we go here, you're also on Rockfin, correct? What's your handle over there?
Yeah.
Convo Couch on Rockfin, right?
Yep.
On all your stuff still going up there.
Twitter, Twitch, Rockfin, Facebook, we'll be back up on our YouTube. I want to say thank you to the Patreons we have out there. We got 123. It's still climbing. And then over the last couple of days since we have been censored, we've been getting a lot of new subscribers. And I want to say thank you to you people out there for helping us out right now, because this is scary times. We don't know what's going to happen after this pandemic or whatever it is ended. How we're going to go back to life. And with YouTube doing what they're doing right now, it's scary times, but we're going to continue to fight and continue to move forward. And I want to say thank you, David, for doing what you do. It's great to finally meet you and be on your show. And I'm going to get you that sticker, Tulsi for staff, as soon as I can.
You just love that. Oh,
when you said that, brother, I thought that was,
I was all, we got to wrap this up. But, when that was all going down, I was so freaking gung ho about Tulsi Gabbard that I watched everybody talk about everything. And you come on, you're like, oh, she'd be great on this. And I'm like, here we go again, Tulsi Gabbard, and I wasn't I didn't do the 2016 Bernie thing. So I didn't have that context. So I kind of went back and looked at the, just what people were doing and saying 2016, and oh yeah, he got robbed and he should have won, and Hillary just, the whole thing was rigged and so forth. But when I got to the point where I just saw her speech in Hawaii, that first speech, I'm going, who the heck is this? I mean, it's that moment, some people had it, when Obama ran for president, he gave there's not a black America, white America, there's just the United States of America. That rhetoric was very short-lived by Barack Obama, very short-lived. He immediately started the identity politics thing as soon as he became president. But here was Tulsi Gabbard saying, you know what? If you're on the left, you're on the right. I want just what you just said. And so at that moment when you were all doing what you're doing, and I'm starting to get into these, I started making fun of some of these channels, like there's a bunch of neo-progressives.
But David, I got to tell you, you were right. I felt like a guy who'd been knocked down and got up and said, man, that was a good punch there. I needed that shit, and I'll never get hit by that. Listen, after that, I never had that rhetoric ever again, and that's why I think that you were a pivotal part, an important part to getting people aboard and understanding Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, in fact, somebody reached out to me and was like, oh, I hope you guys are important. David is really important for the movement because he'll get a lot of Trump people that used to vote for Trump in 2016 over to Tulsi. And I'm like, hey, listen, 100%, I got no problem with the guy whatsoever. In fact, I think he was right. Yeah. And I changed that rhetoric, and I went all in for Tulsi after that. And I was able to stand behind her policies, stand behind her character, stand behind her plan, stand behind the fact that she wants to reach across the board and stuff like that. And you're right. She is the person. She's been the best. And the reason you're wearing that shirt today, everything is like that, is we're seeing what's going on. The clown show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Democrats are lost. She's walking out of the Democratic Congress right now. Who do we have that's going to fight against the suppression of our civil liberties? What regime? Anti-imperialism candidates on the left now? None. None.
Zero. You got Thomas Massey, who's all alone now, and he's a Republican, but he's all alone. Justin Amash, he's quitting, right? He's not.
Well, yeah, he's quitting too. And that's the thing that I like. What the Libertarians did this time is they saved the seat for Justin Amash. They're like, Justin, you want to take the seat? We can do that. Unfortunately, they should have done the same thing on the Green Party with Jesse, and they didn't. They blew up. If they really wanted to grow, they just blew a huge opportunity right now because they picked the guy who's going to get less than 1%.
Yeah, and like you said, he's a nice guy, but let's just be honest here.
0-24, Dave. If you're gonna be 0-25, make sure that 25's a big one.
He's not all that charismatic. That's what I was gonna say.
Sounds like George Wallace, right?
He's a nice man. He is. I interviewed him. He's a nice man. He's a good man. Yeah. But the country, you're gonna go from Donald Trump to that. I don't think it's gonna happen. No. So, all right, brother, thanks so much for coming on. I wish you the best with this channel, that they reinstate everything and you grow in leaps and bounds. And I will put a link to your channel and so forth. in your account on Twitter. People need to follow Pasta on Twitter. He retweets some great stuff, just like all the people I follow over there. And it's just we need to keep at it. We just have to keep going, brother.
Yeah, we keep having these conversations. We'll break through. We'll get there. I mean, I have some hope. I'm really hoping if they don't throw us in jail, and I'm not talking about Facebook jail, if they don't throw us in the real jail, dude, hopefully we'll break through.
Dude, we might have to go underground after the election. We don't know what's going to happen.
I'm moving to Italy.
Yeah, hey, that's my home. Well, it's not literally my home country, but you and I
know. Yeah.
There, but
get your ancestry.com. Find out if you got any family members over there. The Italians, they take people into their homes. We might need to get out of here and go over there. So
yeah, that's where I'm from, Sicily. So I have to. It's a small island, and it's at the end of the boot. So
I know. My mother's Sicilian. My mother's got the mustache and the wooden spoon. She's she's ready to rock and roll.
The cooking though, man. Oh, dude. All right. I gotta go.
Thank you, David.
And thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.